Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Willie, and today I want to talk to you about Classic WoW, as well as another notable MMO. Many of you may be aware, but there is already an MMO that has successfully released a classic version. An MMO older than WoW. An MMO where the classic version is now far more popular than the live game. And that MMO is old school RuneScape. So what I want to ask you today is, can Classic WoW be as successful as old school RuneScape has been? Now, before I get into this, I just want to say two things real quick. So, number one,
no changes. Fuck!
And number two,
no changes. Fuck!
Now that's clear, let's get into this. First, let's cover RuneScape, and I want to give you a bit of background for how old school RuneScape came to exist, as well as why it's done so well. So, in late 2012, Jagex announced their fateful decision to push RuneScape from a click-based combat system to a more modern ability-based format, like WoW for example. However, due to the tile-bound framework RuneScape is built upon, combat felt slow, unresponsive, and just too different. A graphical overhaul to all existing armor sets was also not well received. Jagex were taking away what made RuneScape, and players were outraged from the get-go. Player riots erupted, entire zones of the game were globally muted. Jagex was in full damage control, but the damage they were causing was totally out of control. Players had begun to demand that if Jagex were not willing to call off the updates, that there should be a legacy server, an old school server for veterans to continue playing the game they love. And following the player-driven uprisings, whispers of old school RuneScape began to take hold, and Jagex were really on the brink of disaster at this point. Something had to give, and this was the response from the then Jagex CEO, Mark Gerhard. We will be running a poll and letting you, our valued members, decide the fate of old school RuneScape, given that you directly fund the game's ongoing development and supporting services. This decision, along with the level of service, investment, and potentially any additional fee for the service, is truly up to you to determine. And the community answer was strong, attracting just short of 450,000 votes in favour. Old school RuneScape ended up officially releasing on the 22nd of February 2013, 5 months earlier than RuneScape 3. And ever since it was a poll that decided old school RuneScape would exist, Jagex had kept all big content updates polled. And over time, players have actively voted in things which existed in later versions of the game, as well as many things which are completely new and never existed back when the game was recent at all. And over time, it's gone from being a true 2007 server to something entirely different, and it's absolutely been for the best. So, why did I want you to hear this story? How is old school RuneScape in any way related to Classic WoW? No changes has become the mantra for Classic. Yet, old school RuneScape has become such a success, in part because of the changes and the new content it has received. Within the first year, for example, 2 completely new major pieces of content were released for old school RuneScape. Over the years, you can see points in time where new content has come into the game, often correlating with a spike or continuous increase in concurrent players. This approach for old school RuneScape has been so successful due to the players' votes holding the developer team accountable. It's essentially a check and balance system between player and creator. Every major piece of content that enters old school RuneScape has to reach 75% or higher in a poll cast by players. This is a luxury we do not have with Blizzard. This is why the voices saying no changes were, are, and continue to be so loud. There is a distrust between Blizzard and its player base. People fear that given free license to create Classic, we would end up with some kind of weird hybrid that doesn't reflect the game we remember so well. And It is kind of sad the situation has reached this point. If anything, old school RuneScape has shown that a meaningful player involvement can be a successful measure to creating a game that its target audience want to engage with. I find the timing of Classic interesting too. Summer 2019, midway through a rather lackluster expansion. There isn't any of the mass rebellion we had seen with RuneScape prior to Classic's announcement, but then again, there certainly is an air of discontent among players for the current state of the game, and I'm going to look at this more in a follow-up video. So, to answer the question, can World of Warcraft Classic be as successful as old school RuneScape? Can WoW Classic become the new main game? No, I don't believe it can. And you know what? That's a good thing. That is a good sign. Blizzard appears to be delivering no changes release at present, and with that comes its limitations in terms of what audience it will attract. Blizzard will be aware, of course, of what actions will cause more people to play the game, heirlooms, flying, transmog, etc. But by doing this, you're alienating your core audience. You'll be taking away what makes Classic, classic. And we saw how that ended with RuneScape. No changes is Classic for people who want to play Classic, and that is the way it should be. I believe once the dust settles, Classic will have a solid, steady and active player base, and for me, that makes it truly something to look forward to. And just one more thing before I go, just compare the face of each game quickly for me. Let me know what you think about all this, and thanks very much for watching. Take care, guys. Bye.